Hello and welcome back to the Crime Reel. For this week's true crime narration, we shall be looking at the horrific story of Isabella Guzman and how she ultimately became a TikTok trend for all of the wrong reasons. Isabella was born in the United States of America in June 1995 to Yunmi and Robert Guzman. When Isabella was 4 years old, her parents divorced and she remained living in the family home in Aurora, Colorado with her mother, Yunmi. From an early age, Isabella's relationship with her mother was difficult, and this was compounded further when Yunmi remarried. Isabella resented her stepfather, Ryan, who she believed was trying to replace her father, and the young girl continued to blame her mother for the breakdown of her family unit. At the age of 7, Isabella spent some time living with her biological father as she was struggling to cope with the fact that her mother had remarried. However, this arrangement was temporary and she would later return to live with Yunmi and Ryan. Her father, mother and stepfather were all devout Jehovah's Witnesses, and they were extremely strict with Isabella regarding all aspects of this religion. The family were not particularly well off, and Isabella seemed to be a very unhappy child. She seldom smiled or wanted to play with other children and was viewed by others as a problem child. As she grew older, Isabella became incredibly angry and was prone to increasingly explosive outbursts. She would often clash with her mother, and loud arguments between the pair were commonplace. At the age of 14, Isabella expressed her desire to leave behind her religious practices, a decision which was completely opposed by her parents and for which she was severely admonished. Isabella continued to rebel against her mother, and in 2013, at the age of 18, she decided that she wanted to drop out of high school despite only being months away from graduation. This in turn led to yet more heated arguments. Further tension was caused by Isabella repeatedly sneaking boys into the family home at South Lima Street, this being against the wishes of her parents. The police would later state that men were often seen climbing the fences of the Hoy residence in what appeared to be a blatant disregard of her parents' rules. By August of 2013, the situation within the family had reached boiling point. An argument erupted during which Isabella spat in her mother's face. Yunmi had become fearful of Isabella and asked her husband Ryan to remain physically close to her as she was fearful of what her daughter would do. After a particularly intense argument, Yunmi awoke the following morning to an email from her daughter in which Isabella said simply, "You will pay." Fearing for her safety, Yunmi called the police in the hope that they could defuse the situation. The police visited the house to talk to Isabella on the 28th of August 2013, explaining that as she was now 18 years old, she could be reprimanded for her actions under the law. They informed her that her mother was completely within her rights to throw Isabella out of the house for her behaviour, and that she needed to be much more considerate of her words and actions. Later that same day, Yunmi got in touch with Isabella's biological father, Robert, to help with their daughter's behaviour. Robert visited Isabella in an attempt to get her to understand the consequences of her actions. Robert tried to reinforce what the police had already told Isabella, as well as stating the importance of her respecting her mother and stepfather. He was later quoted as saying, "I went to talk to Isabella and we sat down in the backyard looking at the trees and the animals, and I started to talk to her about the respect that people should have for their parents. And I was trying to let her know that she should be obedient to her parents, not rebellious, and that she should try to listen more, and everything was going to be fine. In the conversation, I thought that I made progress." At around 9:30 that evening, Yunmi returned home from her place of work, Bella's portrait studio at the town centre in Aurora that Yunmi owned. She often worked long hours, and upon her return went upstairs to take a shower, while Ryan remained downstairs eating his dinner and watching television. Shortly afterwards, Ryan heard screams and loud bangs coming from upstairs. He raced up and tried to enter the bathroom from which the screams were coming, but the door was locked. Ryan rushed back downstairs to grab his mobile phone and began calling 911 as he ran back up to the bathroom. As he did so, he could see blood seeping under the closed door. At this point, Isabella opened the bathroom door and walked out. Without saying a word, simply gazing directly ahead, she walked past Ryan. Still clutching a knife, holding it downward in her right hand, she left the house dressed only in a pink sports bra and turquoise shorts. Despite believing that his wife was already dead, Ryan followed the 911 operator's instructions and attempted to resuscitate her. When the police arrived, they found 47-year-old Yun-Mi naked on the shower floor, covered in blood. She was declared dead at the scene. She had been stabbed 31 times to the face and 48 times in the neck. A baseball bat was next to her on the floor. Yun-Mi's autopsy later revealed that she had in fact been stabbed a total of 151 times. 16 hours later, Isabella was arrested in a car park on South Parker Road near East Hampton Avenue in Aurora. On the morning of Thursday the 5th of September, Isabella was scheduled to attend a hearing in Arapahoe County Court. The judge was forced to postpone the hearing for several hours due to Isabella refusing to leave her cell. When she eventually arrived in court, she smiled briefly as she was informed that she would be facing 1 count of first-degree murder and 2 counts of violent crime. As the hearing progressed, she started to make faces at the cameras. At one point towards the end of the hearing, she began tearing up and then looked into the camera and pointed to her eyes in order to draw attention to her tears. She was jailed without bail, awaiting her trial. In June 2014, Isabella pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity. In court, a doctor put forth his stated deposition that Isabella was suffering from schizophrenia and had been experiencing profoundly frightening symptoms for many years. According to this doctor, Isabella did not believe that her mother was actually her mother, but instead was a lady named Cecilia who had to be slain in order to rescue the earth. The court agreed and ordered that Isabella should stay in a mental health facility until she was no longer a threat to herself or the community. This would mean that she could potentially remain there for the rest of her life. She was transferred to the Colorado Mental Medical Clinic in Pueblo. Isabella is now 26 years old. In recent interviews, she has stated that she is now on medication and that she was not herself when she committed the murder. She believes that her health has been restored in full and insists that she is no longer the same person who killed her mother in 2013. During these interviews, she talked about the trauma that she suffered as a child, describing her childhood as deeply unhappy and abusive. She also stated that she had been sexually assaulted in 2015 by a hospital employee at the mental health facility. The findings of this complaint have never been made public due to privacy laws. Isabella is now allowed by the court to leave the facility for group therapy and other treatments. These external trips are monitored by GPS, and Isabella is hopeful that this will be the first step to her being released and rejoining society. Recently, videos from Isabella's court appearance have gone viral, and as a result she has developed a large fan base of young people who idolised her so-called cool aesthetic and seem to believe that she is too cute and innocent to be capable of murder. Many on TikTok have soundtrack clips romanticising what Isabella did, often using the song Sweet But Psycho, the debut single by Ava Max. The song itself is not without controversy, having been criticised by several mental health advocates for stigmatising mental illnesses and perpetuating existing stereotypes which misrepresent mental illness. When searching for Isabella on TikTok, the statistics are quite astounding. There are hundreds of millions of views, along with numerous fan pages and edits. Many of these are accompanied by heated debate as to whether Isabella is a cute young woman who was ravaged by mental illness or a cold-blooded killer. Irrespective of people's opinions on the subject, it would seem that Isabella has become social media famous for the very worst of reasons. That concludes today's story. Thanks ever so much for listening to it. Please leave any comments down below. Thanks very much for listening to The Crime Reel. Stay safe. Goodbye. Psst. I found that Aurora, Colorado is quite famous for many different things. One that drew my attention though was by a man called Jeff Wagg, who managed to visit 21 different places called Aurora in 2019. Jeff, I'm in aurora of your efforts. Goodbye.